Can you hear me at all? Okay. Yeah, it's just your mic, your microphone source is it looks like what the issue is. Yeah, we still don't have any audio. Um, I'm just going to give you a call real quick.
Hello, 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 hello. How about that? The bar's moving now. So I had to use the headphones. All right. Now I can't hear you.
Sorry, I muted the
Oh,
the
okay.
thing because if we're on the phone and that it echoes.
All right.
So,
So you can hear me now, fine.
all right. So, you're great. You're great. This is perfect. So, Jamie, appreciate that. Make sure I'm pronouncing your last name, Chapman.
That's it.
Okay. I always ask, even though yours is easy. All right. So, Jamie Chapman, Chapman's Garage. All right, we'll get started. So this is not live. So if you say something, anything happens you don't like, we can put a edit in it. I can put a marker in it, and they'll edit it out. So
Okay.
we
Sounds
get
good.
started here. Welcome to Beyond the Bay. I'm your host Peter Cooper, and today's guest Jamie Chapman from Chapman Garage. Thanks for being on today.
Thanks for having me on here.
So Jamie, tell me a little bit about your operation because I know you do quite a few different things. So tell me about your shop and what you have going on there.
Uh, we're a shop. We work on big trucks, mostly big trucks. We do work on some smaller cars, equipment, stuff like that, but it's mainly big trucks we work on.
All right. And how long have you been in business?
Since '05, we've been doing this since '05. We started off uh, washing trucks, and then the location we were at, they had a tire guy down there. He left, so we got the tire lease on that property, and got a service truck, outfitted it to do tires, hooked up with Bridgestone for national accounts, hooked up with a Bandag for for what are they called? The damn recap tires, mostly on containers. Was with the Bandag situation. We moved to another location. I had been calling a truck wash in Atlanta or Forest Park at a truck stop, and I had tried to get that truck wash for a couple of years. And I just happened to be up there picking up parts and stopped in and talked to the owner. We got the truck wash, and I said, I want to get the tire lease on this yard. And he said, whoever opens the garage up gets a tire lease. So that's when we started the garage. That was around 2005. We started that and just been at several different locations.
And how many technicians do you have?
4.
So you got four guys working for you. And you're doing road service too, correct?
Yeah, we mainly do road service. Since we moved over here at this current location, this shop is not set up for big trucks. This is like a car garage. So the doors are not high enough. The trucks we work on, we have to work on the pads outside. I'm trying to get the owners to retrofit the doors, or I've told them, hey, we can tear the building down. I'll pay to put the new building up for trucks, but we'll take that money off the rent. So I'm trying to work that deal out with them to do that.
Right. And I know that's a real challenge. Let's face it. I started my shop with one service truck in a gravel parking lot, and it's tough. It's really tough, especially in the northern climates when it's 15 degrees out and you're working outside trying to change a turbo on a truck. It's hard. And I think a lot of us have been through that, and it really makes you worth your money when you're working outside in freezing temperatures.
Yeah.
But in your case, I mean, you guys have got the heat.
Yeah, I got a lot of respect for these guys that do that, because I'm not a mechanic. I can change oil and tires on a truck, but I'm not a mechanic, and I respect everything that these guys do. I'm more of like a deal. I do deals with people. That's what I like. I like interacting with the drivers and setting up deals.
Okay, right. So, I got a couple questions for you on, kind of how you operate. You offer 24/7 road service. And so what kind of systems do you have to have in place so that you're not taking all the phone calls 24/7?
I take all the phone calls 24/7. I'm a
So
control freak. I'm a control freak in that aspect. I want to know what the job is, who's on it, how long they've been on it, when it's finished. I'm a control freak like that. Today's my birthday. Happy birthday, Jamie. Thank you.
Happy birthday.
But I'm divorced. My kids are grown. I pretty much, all I do is work and go home. I don't chase women anymore. I'm pretty much working all the time or trying to figure out a way to make additional income. So I move dirt. We do lawn care. I'm in the process now of trying to get some trucks to put them on the road. So I basically just work all the time.
So, you've got a lot of irons in the fire, and you've been in business for a while. So what's next for Chapman's? I mean, are you planning on growing? Do you have a growth plan? What do you guys have in that area?
I don't really have a growth plan, but I do want to grow, but I don't have like a specific plan. I just basically, by the seat of my pants is the way I do things. If an opportunity presents itself and I feel like I can benefit from it or the company can benefit from it, we do it. I don't have to answer to nobody else. I can make my own decisions on everything.
Well, that's true. I mean, that is one great thing about running a business is it's yours. You got to make it the way you want. And if there's certain types of work you don't want to do or certain types of customers you don't want to deal with, frankly, you don't have to.
Yeah. We got into the parking for parking big trucks. We got into that probably 7 years ago. I wish I had known about it a long time ago. I would have got into it way back then. But we have got into the parking game. That's an additional revenue, and plus we get to utilize space that otherwise wouldn't be generating money.
Right. And I actually encourage a lot of shop owners too, if you have a big lot and you have extra space, let truck parking, because if nothing else, you got a captive audience. You know, if they go out and their truck doesn't start, they need a starter, the batteries are dead, and they need a jump. I mean, it's pretty sure that you're going to get that work.
Yeah, it's right. It's right there. We don't allow other vendors to work on our yards, and a lot of drivers get mad about that. And I say, well, you know, I can't go down to Freightliner and pull my service truck into Freightliner. They won't let me work there. It's the same thing here. My insurance don't cover other people working on the yard, for one. Two, you know, I don't want you out there making a mess on my yard, because a lot of these guys that do that, like they'll come in and change a tire. They'll leave a tire on the yard, and that's just trash that the owner's got to deal with getting rid of it. So we don't do that. But it is like a captive audience. Somebody needs to jump off. Hey, we're right here. We can help you out and get you on the road faster than you calling somebody to come out here and jump you. We're here.
Absolutely. And I think that's something a lot of owners need to realize, is that there's so many opportunities out there for other income sources. It's not just fixing trucks or fixing cars. There are other things that you can do for a revenue stream. Like, for example, one of the things I did was I found out that a lot of my customers were having a hard time getting bulk oil. Like the distributor wouldn't give them the time of day. So I called my distributor and said, hey, are you willing to deliver to other locations? They're like, yeah, we don't care. You have an account. But that distributor, to have an account, you had to have a minimum buy. You had to buy 1,200 gallons of oil a year. Well, these little fleets couldn't do it. So I just started selling them the oil. And I literally did nothing. I just made a phone call and said, deliver 200 gallons of oil. They delivered it, and bam, you know, Bob's your uncle. I was making money. And so, you know, if you have a real entrepreneur mindset, all you have to do is look for a problem that needs solved.
Yep.
And you can make money doing it.
You can. And that's the thing with the parking. Can I give them guys a plug? Because I hooked up with a company. It's truckparkingclub.com. I hooked up with them. I've been at this location for a little over a year. In the last, we signed up with them in February. So I've got 170 bookings since February from signing up with this company, truckparkingclub.com. They handle everything. They send me a notification when somebody does, and I was just out there parking 2 trucks when you called me. That I got notifications, hey, these guys booked your spot for this number of days. I went out there and showed them where to park, and it's easy money. It's easy money that I wouldn't have got otherwise.
Well, and that's a valid point. So you're using truckparking.com, and I've seen them at trade shows. They were at Mid-American Truck Show. They got a giant yellow tent. They're hard to miss.
Yeah.
But tell me how that experience has been. Like, is it worthwhile? You know, if a guy's sitting on 20 extra parking spots, is it worth it for them to go and use one of these apps?
Yeah, like I said, since February, we booked 170 spots they have booked it, truckparkingclub.com, and they're like nationwide. So if somebody needs their service, they go on there and it shows on their apps what the closest location is to where they're at, and then they'll book that yard. And it's like I said, it's just extra money that I wouldn't have received.
Well, it's good to hear your feedback, because we hear a lot of, like, if you go online, there's a lot of feedback from drivers, how drivers like it. But I've really never run across someone that's offering the parking and how easy. So it's a pretty easy process then for you as the owner? You just get a notification and that's it, or how does it work on your end?
Yeah, I get a notification on my phone that tells me it, and if it's after hours, I'll call one of my guys and go, hey, I've got this truck's coming in, this company name, this truck number or trailer number, to make sure that they're parked right. Because I got somebody that's up here 24/7, that's on the yard 24/7, and they call me and do that, and we just book it. You know, they handle everything. They handle the charges. I get a percentage of the amount of daily parking. They even do hourly parking. So I've had trucks that come over here for, you know, and hourly parking pays better than daily parking. Daily parking pays better than weekly, and it all pays better than monthly. So the way we're set up, I would rather have daily parkers than monthly guys that are here all the time, because I make more money off of it.
Right.
But right. I still do offer monthly parking for guys that are here, and they can put their vehicle in their spot, and it holds their spot till they come back in.
Yeah, and that's probably not a bad thing, but I'm sure at that point you're probably going to circumvent the app at that point. I'm guessing, because, you know, there's no reason to pay a cut if the guy's going to if he's going to domicile out of your parking lot and that's his spot every night, then you might as well just charge him directly.
Yeah. Well, I've got my own customers. I have my own group of parkers that I utilize, and this is just an added thing going with TruckParkerClub.com. It's just added. It's additional revenue that I never would have got.
Well, and that's the whole point. Then that's why I wanted to bring it up, and it's such a great thing to talk about, because there are shop owners that are sitting on these massive lots and they don't need all the space. And if you can rent some of it out and have additional income, let's face it. I mean, it's not a lot of work for most of them. You probably have to make.
If they don't want to do it, tell them to call me. I'll be glad to set it up with TruckParkingClub.com and get that cut off of it.
That's true, man. You got to be willing to do the work, and the money's out there if people are just willing to do things that sometimes might be not in their wheelhouse.
There's a couple of other companies that have contacted me that do the same thing as TruckParkingClub.com. I think I've got one customer from another company that does the same thing. It's neighbor.com or something like that. But Truck Parking Club, like I said, it's been like a godsend. It's just extra money.
Yeah, and it's good. I mean, that's the one thing is, shop owners don't have to just be what they are today. You can adapt and get into other things. You can get into other fields. I know a couple of shops, like, for example, that have gotten hyper into working on fire trucks. And it's a super specialized, have to have a lot of training and be certified to do these pump testing. But man, they say that, once you open that door, there's such a need for it that people are willing to pay a decent amount for it. So I think that's one thing that owners, if you're looking for a little extra profit in your business, just open your eyes to the other possibilities that are out there. Like, for example, what Jamie's talking about, truck parking.
That's what it is. I think a lot of owners, especially, mom and pop shops, they get like stuck in the box. They don't look outside to see what other revenue streams that they could generate out of their business. And the corporations, they don't care about nothing. They're all people that had never touched a wrench or did anything else, that they're in there typing and stuff like that. I'm talking about the like Freightliner, KW and stuff like that. A lot of them places are so big that they forgot what it's like to be a small mom and pop shop.
I agree. And they have. A lot of these big corporations, I tell people, you can make a really good living just working on the scraps that the dealerships forgot about. The customers that they've alienated or the customers that they don't seem to care about. If you treat them right and you treat them fair, you'll be surprised how much work you'll get. Because honestly, we need to learn this in the aftermarket world. You do not have to be that good to be better than the dealership. No. Like, that bar is pretty low.
Yeah.
So if you think about it, and what I'm talking about is customer service. I'm not talking about technical ability. You don't have to be all that great in customer service to be better than the dealership.
It's because they're so big. Right. They don't really have to be customer oriented as a smaller company does, because they're that big. But you pick up a lot of work from the dealerships and stuff like that, because they are so big and because they're so backed up. The wait time for somebody to go to Freightliner or KW or something like that it's just crazy.
It is. And honestly, that's what I tell a lot of these independent shops. Stop making it about money. You want to make it about money and price, but if you really think about it, make it about time. Because I've seen dealerships tell a guy, oh, go park it out back. That part's on national back order. It's going to be 3 months.
Yeah.
That dealership is never going to go on eBay and find a used one. They're not going to call the junkyards. They literally don't care. They don't care how long that truck takes to get fixed, but the owner does. And if you're willing to put in a little bit more effort and source parts and say yes more to customers, you'd be amazed how many more guys you'll pick up.
Yeah, because they're gonna, it's word of mouth, and I think that's the best advertising, is the word of mouth, because they're gonna tell their buddies, hey, these guys took care of me. They went the extra mile to help me get back on the road. I do that because my dad was a driver, so I know what these guys go through on the road. But my dad drove for, he drove for himself for a long time, but then he graduated and went and worked with Ansco and then Premier. He retired from Premier. But the big companies don't care. They just don't. They don't seem to care about the driver and stuff like that.
Yeah, and they don't. And I think that's a valid point that we all need to look at is just, look at what people want. What do people want? They want you to fix their truck fast. And then the second thing they care about is price. So what I try to tell everybody is, look, big fleets especially, they care more about time than money. Now, I'm not saying you can go out there and charge them 5 times. I'm talking about if you charge $10 an hour more than the shop down the street, and that shop down the street's got a 3-week wait time and you don't, you can charge more.
Yeah.
For that expediency. You know what I mean? So people just need to understand that this market is totally different than they think it is.
Well, that's the way I look at it is, hey, I'm trying to get you, I ain't making money while we're sitting here working on your truck. I'm making money when you leave. So I want to get you in and out as fast as I can because that frees up a bay or a spot for us to bring somebody else in, and plus it gets you back on the road because you ain't making money when you're sitting there. A mama, she wants you to take her down to Crystal Burger on Friday, so she wants you back out there making money as fast as she can.
Well, and I think that's a valid point, which you just brought up. And that's so many owners overlook that. They look at it and say, well, I bill this much per hour. We're busy. We're getting stuff done. And then I look at their books at the end of the week and they have no cash. And I'm like, well, if you're charging this much and you're saying you're busy, why are you not making more money? And then you find out the real problem is they can't get stuff done.
Yeah.
In other words, they've got all kinds of work. It's work in progress, but they're not getting it done. So I think owners need to understand that exactly what you just said, Jamie. You don't get paid till the truck leaves.
Yeah.
So you can have a whole parking lot full of work, but you're not going to make any money until you actually fix these trucks.
Yeah,
we need to focus in this industry more on getting things done.
Yeah, until you see them, tail lights, until you see the tail lights leaving your property, you're just sitting there. You're sitting on top of work. So
right.
a lot of the shops do the book hours and things like that. A job, the book hours say 10 hours. It incentivizes paying a mechanic. It incentivizes him to pay him by the job. So if that 10-hour job, it probably takes him 6 hours to do it. He gets paid the full 10 hours, but it only took him 6 hours to do it. And that way he's moving on to his next job and that makes his bank account go up, and then it makes yours go up as well.
Yeah, we call that flat rate in the industry. And it's actually, I think, one of the best ways we can pay. The unfortunate thing is especially if you get on social media, there's so much misinformation and so many angry, disgruntled technicians out there talking about flat rate and how bad it is. And I'll be honest, there are a lot of dealership groups that will sell a guy the world and he shows up and they only have 20 or 30 hours of the work for him a week. Yeah, you're not going to survive on flat rate. But in my world, from what I've seen, when you can get a technician being paid by the job, it is absolutely almost overnight how quickly it changes their behavior. Like They actually start caring, and they care, and they look for efficiencies. Like they try to be quicker and better at their job.
Not only that, then like when we do PMs and things, it increases. You see things that need to be fixed, which is what a PM is for, is preventative maintenance. You're fixing something before it breaks down on you. So it helps them out in that aspect because they'll point out that, hey, you need to keep an eye on this because it's going bad. It's not broke now, but it's going to be broke. So it's just like an upsell.
Right. It is. So tell me about, you said that you really don't have a big plan as far as scaling. We could work through that if you're interested. You can try and experiment and go down a path of, talk about what your revenue is today. Do you have a target amount? Do you have a dollar amount you'd like to see out of your business?
As much as I can get.
Let's talk about that. So let's talk about that. You've got 4 guys. I wonder how many shop owners have ever actually looked at it from a standpoint of what is their capacity to generate revenue? Meaning with the current labor force you have, right? You realistically can't expect much more than about 100, 110% in the heavy duty world for efficiency. So if we just used 100%, you got 4 guys working 40 hours a week. Hopefully we're not doing a lot of overtime, but say they're there 40 hours a week. That gives you 160 hours of labor a week that you can generate, right? Yeah. Do you follow my math?
Yeah.
So if we take that 160 and we take it times your door rate, your labor rate, then that's going to give you the amount that you can charge for labor, realistically. And you should be able to double that. So most heavy duty.
Go ahead.
So most heavy duty repair shops, for every $100 in labor they sell, they're going to sell about $100 in parts, right? So if we think about that, how many owners out there have ever actually figured a calculation and said, what am I capable of? And one of the things I tell owners that I work with is, let's figure out what you're capable of. And instead of saying, well, I made profit, let's talk about how much you gave up every day. So if you got a technician that's only billing 32 hours a week, really we need to think about it. What are you giving up? And what you're giving up is 8 hours of labor per tech per week, right? So that's a lot of money if you start doing the math.
That's 40 hours a week you're giving up.
Right. And so that's what I'm trying to get owners to understand. It's not just about what you're making. It's what are you capable of? Like, for me, at least, every day I get up, I'm not in a mindset of what do I have to do to survive today? Like, I tell people all the time, I'm pretty sure human beings figured out about 10,000 years ago how to survive. So merely survival is not my end game, right? My end game is what am I capable of? And that was the way I ran my businesses, is what can I get from them? What is possible? And if you have that mindset, you will find every day more is possible than you ever imagined.
Yeah, if you can get a team that's on board with what you're doing, that's another big thing is finding techs that sort of see the same thing that you're trying to do. And that's the problem I've run into over the years, is finding people that have that same mentality. It's hard to find people like that.
Well, it is hard to find. And I'll be honest, it's even harder to find when owners aren't really upfront about what they want. And meaning, what do they expect from an employee and what do they want out of their business? So, another catchphrase for it, we call it vision. What is your vision? Well, my vision is this is what I want it to be like. I tell people it's like painting a picture. You got to go full Bob Ross on it. You got to tell people where the happy trees are living, and you got to go out there and show them. Right? Yeah. Now, whether that means that you're the type of guy who goes out and shows a kid, yes, you can change a tire in 5 minutes. Yeah. Right? It is possible. Let me show you how to do it, because let me show you this trick. Now, if you're that kind of guy, great, do it. Be a mentor, show the guy. But also, you could be the type of owner who really has the time and the methodical thought, sit down, plan it out, and sell it that way. You got to do what your style is and what works for you. But I tell owners, if you can't explain to someone what you want, how are you ever going to get it?
Yeah. You got to be able to push it on to your techs or your guys that you're working with, what your vision is, so y'all could come together and both of y'all had the same vision. But like I said, it's right. Finding the people that are of that mentality. How did you find techs? Because I've did word of mouth, parts houses. Hey, I've got an opening. It's just hard to find techs. Every shop on Moreland Avenue's got signs out front, techs wanted. And then you'll see these techs, they'll be here at this place for a while, and then they'll move over to this shop, and then they'll move over to this shop. You see the same ones, and they're just moving up and down the street. So how do you
So I can tell you how I found, absolutely. I'll tell you the trick to it. And the trick to it is, in business, you have to think of funnels, right? Most owners put all the emphasis on what I call a customer funnel, right? They're marketing, they're out there trying to sell, they may have outside salespeople, they may be doing internet ads, and that is a customer funnel. But very, very few shop owners are thinking about a labor funnel or an employee funnel. And so when you start focusing on that, you start getting a little bit better techs. But ultimately, Jamie, you just brought up a good point. Every shop in town is hiring.
Yes.
So you got to ask yourself one very simple question. Why would a technician want to work for you?
It ain't because
it's a hard question.
Yeah, I know, because I'm a hard ass. That's what I understand that I'm a hard ass, because I'm the owner. This is the way I want things done, so let's do it my way. And then you argue with people, go, oh, don't do it that way. What are you doing it that way for? Because that's the way I want it done. I've got standards that I want kept, and I don't want you cutting standards because it's my name on this, not yours.
Well, and it's okay. There's nothing wrong with having standards. But back to my point about how do you hire technicians, you've got to ask that question. If a technician's got 10 places he can go and work, why would he come work for you? And this is a question every shop owner's got to dig deep in their heart and answer. And if you don't have a good answer, and by the way, the two answers don't give or that are not acceptable is because we pay really good. You don't pay that good. Most shops only pay about as good as everybody else.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe if you're paying 30 or 50% above market, then you can say that. And then the second thing is they say, well, it's because we're like family. Do not use that language. You know what that language means? I grew up on a farm with a big family. You know what that meant? You're going to get abused and you're working for free.
Yeah, you're working for free. Yeah. Look, my brother works for me, and me and him butt heads all the time about things because he thinks he's entitled, to it because he's my brother. And I think you should be the number one guy promoting the business instead of, you're not a regular employee. You're a family member. You should be, what I think he should be doing, he's not doing, and we butt heads on that all the time.
Yeah, and I actually admire that. Years ago when I worked for the city bus barn, it was just by chance, my brother ended up being my boss, and that just did not work well. And later on, I ended up trying to work with my wife in the office at our shop, and that didn't work. So I really have a great admiration for all of you shop owners out there that work with your family, because you must have an immense amount of patience and tolerance, because it was tough for me. It was really tough for me to work with family.
I worked with my second wife for probably 10, 12 years before we got divorced. She worked with me. She was in the office with me all the time. But I was doing a lot more things, and I was running back between the truck wash and the shop. I was out of the office a lot. She did most of the billing and everything. And since I've had to take that over, I appreciate what she did, because there's a lot of work with doing the billing and things. But I enjoy that more because it puts me more close up with the drivers. I see them through the whole process now. I see them from when they get here to when they leave.
Yeah. And that's something too that owners can look at. You don't have to do a certain thing. In other words, there's nothing out there. There's no rules that say that you have to do this job or that job. I tell owners that all the time. Like, look, I owned a shop at one point in time when I owned my fleet, and I hated doing office work. I didn't want to deal with people. I didn't want to make invoices. I didn't want to do any of that stuff. So I hired a manager to run my business for me, and I went back out to the shop, and I was completely happy being that way. I was younger. It wasn't for me at the time. And you don't have to. Like, if there's a job that you don't want to do in your business, don't do it. There's nothing making you do that other than yourself. Yeah. Like, you can hire people to do jobs you don't want to do. We do it all the time. We hire accountants and lawyers. Like, none of us want to go back to school and get a law degree and be a lawyer, so we hire it. But there's other positions too that you can hire for.
Yeah, you can hire for anything. Anything you need done, you can hire it done. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Jamie, I really appreciate you being on today and telling us a little bit about your operation and the way that you run it.
All right, I appreciate you asking me on here. Chapman's Garage in Atlanta. Give us a call if you need something.
Right. And tell me, I do want to let you plug. You said that you have a podcast that you do. Tell us a little bit about that and what that's called.
This is Jamie Chapman on YouTube. It's political. A lot of it's political. I do game on there sometimes, but a lot of it's political. YouTube has taken me down several times because they don't agree with my politics. And I'm of the mindset, I don't really care. If you don't like what I'm saying, you don't have to listen to what I'm saying. Nobody's making you sit here and watch. So you can either like it or not. And I got in trouble with that because, I got my shirt on, and one of the girls was on there one day I was doing it, and I let them call in. And she said, look at this guy. He's got his shirt on and all that. What's he? I'm calling. I said, hold on a minute. I'll get my boss for you. And I got up and stepped off camera and stepped back on, and I said, what's he done did now? You can't, and they try that silencing people. That don't work with me. But it shouldn't work with anybody in this country. This is America. We have the right to say what we want to. If you don't like it, you don't have to listen to it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then that's the benefit of being a business owner. You get to own, you get to make the world, it's your little world. You make it how you want.
Yeah.
All right, Jamie, I really appreciate you being on today.
All right. Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
So one thing I need you to do, Jamie, is look at your screen, and it should have a little arrow saying uploading. Oh, I think it's complete. Man, you must have good internet. Does it say complete at the top of your screen? Upload complete.
Where at on the screen?
Top middle.
I don't see anything top middle. Something popped up, but
yeah,
then
I think it
but it went away.
Yeah, I think that's why, is because it's done already. So we're good, and I really appreciate your time today. And I'm going to send out a follow-up email if you have any interest. One of the things I give away, just as a token of my appreciation to any guest that's been on,
a trip to
is
Tahiti?
An opportunity to work. Well, I wish I could do that. I haven't even done that myself yet, but it's an opportunity to get some free coaching for me. Yeah. So if you have any interest in something you want to work on, like talking about how do you hire techs, we could work through that a little bit, and I can send you some resources. It's kind of my thank you for being on. And then also the other thing is once we get this edited, I will send you all the video files so you can post it on your YouTube page as well.
Yeah, I was doing live at the same time. The only thing, it didn't have you pulled up on the screen, but they can hear you on there. But yeah, if you send me that, then I'll upload that to my screen. And I told the guys at Parking Club, I told them about you. They come out here and hung signs. And I told them, I said, hey, I got a call from a guy. And I said, I'll plug you on there. Because that's a great thing.
I appreciate it. Yeah. Well, and I think it is, because I think it's a huge opportunity. I have a couple shops I work with that have massive lots, and they really struggle to find guys to rent from. And it's like, guys, there's other people, that's their thing, right? Like that's their thing, to run a business just to help you fill up your lot.
If they have a good location, I've got 2 yards. I've got the one here and I got one in Covington. And I get bookings down there on that one. These guys they're all over the place. And they will set it up and handle everything for you. And it's just additional revenue. If you had spots and you're not, if you had spots and you're not doing it, you're crazy.
I agree. I mean, a lot of people say it's a hassle, but everything in business is a hassle. Yeah. So you just have to learn how to suck it up, buttercup, is what I tell people.
The only problem I've had is some of these drivers, they don't have enough time in the seats. One of the lady drivers we ended up having to park her because she couldn't back up. She couldn't. Yeah. She was out there for 45 minutes trying to park the truck. What are you doing?
I've had that happen more than once. I've been like, hey, can you just back your trailer over here? We'll change your tires, but I have to have the trailer on the pad, right? Because I'm not jacking it up in the gravel parking lot. And more than once, I'd have to get out and just literally tell them, why don't you just get out of the truck and I'll park it for you.
That's what we ended up doing. They
can't even back up.
That's what we ended up doing with her.
I get it.
There was one parked out front, and it was a Saturday. And a guy come by and said, hey, you got a truck out front? I said, what? I went out there, and she had done jackknifed her truck. And we've got a loading dock here as well. She was about to go into the loading dock, and I said, whoa. And so I ended up having to back her up to get her out of the way she was all jackknifed in there. I don't know how she got in there like that.
Yeah, it's amazing how well people can screw something up. I mean, it's still after doing this, and I've been in this industry since I was 16 years old, and I started in a truck wash. That's what I started doing for a fleet. It still amazes me every day how much people can screw something up.
That's what I don't understand how half of these guys get CDLs. I don't understand how they get a damn license. And then they're running up and down the road in an 80,000 pound vehicle, and I wouldn't let them drive my car to the mailbox.
Yeah, I agree. But, that's the way stuff has been. So, Jamie, I do got to run. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you, sir.
And we'll catch up later.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Talk to you later.
Later.
Bye.
So we hooked that up over there. How long you been over? It was like 39 minutes. Good video quality. Send feedback.